podcast. I'm with I'm gonna say good friend with this right here. He came here mad and hot at me too, y'all. I love it. I've never seen him that side of him. I always see the other side of him. So it was good to see that he had that energy, man. But this is what I would call a good brother. TC Tompkins, he's really, to me, when I see him, I see a record man, but really he's a good person. If you ever needed anything, this was me in radio and even out. These are the people who check on you like, and he's a very saucy talker. So he talks, that's the only way I can explain it. He don't hold his tongue. TC, where you from?
I'm originally born in Richmond, Virginia, but raised in East Texas.
Okay, I don't know why I always thought you were from New York.
Well, that's where I was probably at when we met. You know, I might have been out. I think I met you. I think I met you though when I was working for Capitol when I was come in here and call on Boogaloo.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I met you then. Yeah.
Okay. TC has written a book. I think it's interesting because he's waited all these years to write a book about his career. Why now? He could have did it right after he decided that, not that he wasn't in it. He's always been touching it at his leisure. I don't even know if it was a true retirement, but you pick and choose when you want to be a part of anything, still to this day.
Yeah, true.
And TC is the last of the real record men. Real record men were the ones that were out there hitting the pavement, hitting the block, truly getting your record played by any means necessary.
Amen. That's true.
We don't really have those anymore. So his perspective on that, why he wrote the book, I cannot wait to hear. And I don't. You don't have to give age, but you started doing this music thing when and why?
I started right out of Vietnam, right after I came back from Vietnam. And, I went to college for a few years, then started in the music industry.
See, I didn't even know you was a soldier. Salute.
Yeah, and what makes this book so phenomenal, I think, is that, like I said, I come from East Texas. I come from a rural background, a segregated background. I grew up in Atlanta, Texas. Went to school in Atlanta, Texas.
I never even heard of Atlanta, Texas.
It's about 20 miles from Texarkana. My grandfather and grandmother then raised me. And then, after I got out of high school, I sought adventure, went to the military, went to Vietnam. And in the book, you discover that while I was in Vietnam, because when I left high school, I didn't have no direction, nothing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I've always been self-assured of myself, and whatever I set out to do, I was going to be able to do it. But I just didn't know what I had and what I wanted to do in life. And while I was in Vietnam, we're getting short, finna get back to the world. And everybody said, well, man, what you going to do when you get back to the world, And the only thing I could really think of that really got my blood up was music. That was the only thing that I felt passionate about.
You were going to do music what?
I was going to get in the music business. I didn't know how. Matter of fact, I didn't even know there was a music business.
Okay, so out the blue, you decide, you know what? I'm going to...
I swear to God, that's what I said.
I'm going to do music, y'all. Do you play piano?
I said I want to be in the music business.
So what did you do with music to make you feel like the music business?
Not a thing. Didn't have a clue. Couldn't play. I couldn't play.
So where's the idea coming from, man, for you to just...
It was just probably the cannabis that I was smoking at the time. You know what I mean? Because I was in Vietnam. It was probably the cannabis, but I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. I just knew instinct. And you know what, though? But Hannah, what made all of this possible is that I met a lady while I was in Vietnam. We started off our relationship as pen pals, and I ended up marrying her. That was my wife. And,
I didn't know.
Yeah. We started our relationship. A partner of mine was in Vietnam from Mississippi, and she had been in the set-ins in Memphis during the Martin Luther King time, and so she had been blackballed from Memphis. So she had to go to Mississippi to teach. And a friend of mine, a guy that I was in Vietnam with up in the hills, told me he knew this lady. He was really trying to bring me down a notch because I was an arrogant soldier, you know. And I was getting letters from probably about 15 different girls.
Did you say you was arrogant?
Well,
things don't change.
No. My personality has not changed.
Not one
No,
bit.
not one bit. I'm like my boy Dion said, I'm not arrogant. I'm just sure of myself.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I'm just sure of myself.
Absolutely.
And when I got back, I went to college, went to Bishop in Dallas, and my wife, we got married. Okay, and after she got married, she got pregnant, so I had to drop out of school. When I dropped out of school, I moved to Memphis with her, and I lived with her mother. And strange as it may seem, she was the first person to get a job in the music industry. She started working for Stax Records as their tape librarian. You remember the big reels? 12-inch tapes?
Yeah.
So they had a safe that they used to keep all of their stuff in at a certain temperature. And she was hired as their librarian to keep track of all those tapes in and out of the studios. And I was working for Zales Jeweler. I was managing a jewelry store for Zales Jeweler. And I got in the music business because, first of all, I started selling artists from Stax custom jewelry. I had a guy downtown Memphis that made custom jewelry named Nelson Endicott. I remember him now. You could draw it, he'd make it, and I sold rings to all kind of guys over there. And finally talked Jim Smith, who was over the custom labels for Stax back then, to give me a job. And they were trying to get into distribution, and they hired me in sales. My first job was driving around 4 states, selling 45s out the back of my car.
For those watching, I don't even know how to explain to you what a 45 is.
Yeah, now that young people.
That's how we going back. I don't even. It's vinyl, but it's very small.
Yeah,
it's a 7-inch, 45.
That's what they used to call them, a 7-inch,
yes,
7 and 12-inch.
So
wax.
you never sold no records.
No,
and the people say, you know what? This guy can sell records.
Yeah, I mean, if you could sell jewelry, which is not necessary for anybody's existence, you can sell anything.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so far this story sounds great.
Yeah, and
don't give everything that's in the book.
Oh no, but trust me.
There's some stuff that you probably can't say here.
I can't say on the.
Yes,
and you know what? And the difficulty that is surprising that I had, because everybody kept asking me to do this. So
for how long?
Long time. I procrastinated a long time.
Why do they think that you had a book in you? Which I believe too, because you've met so many big time people. Michael Jackson, Sade. I love Sade. Still love it to this day.
Yeah.
So, and there's so much you can say if you want to just talk about people personally.
True.
You've decided in the book, though, you're talking about TC.
Talking about TC. You know what? That was really what everybody was concerned about. How much was I going to tell? You know,
because you ain't one of those kind of guys to be giving no secrets.
No, I don't kiss and tell.
You ain't. So that's why when you say I'm writing a book about the industry, I'm like, I don't see how this book can be written.
Yeah. Oh, there's some things in there that I can tell.
Obviously, there's a book
that I have got. Yeah. Matter of fact, because I had to call a lot of people.
Really?
Oh yeah, and let them know that I'm writing this book and I'm telling about this incident. A lot of people didn't want certain incidents told, you know. So I had to disguise some of the stories in the book, you know, just use general terms like artist, promotion person, national DJ.
All these years later, these people would still be embarrassed, hurt, angry about these stories?
Oh, yeah.
They're that devastating to whom they are or how they're perceived.
Some people, you know, and things have changed so much now than they were then.
Yes, sir.
People are so politically conscious of everything.
Absolutely.
And they don't want anything said.
That's why I thought the book was going to be hard for you.
It was tough.
Because if anybody is close to you or talk to you, what's the word? You don't mince your words?
No, I bring it out.
Yeah.
I bring out the truth.
So I don't know how, I'm like, again, I'm not sure how this person can write this book because they're very honest, truthful, tell it like it is human being.
It was tough.
Yes, sir.
It was tough. I mean, that's why it was supposed to have been out 2-3 months ago, but I kept having to re-edit. I kept having to go back and take people's names out or change the story a little bit or disguise it a little bit. So that took almost 2 months. Because I tell about certain things that CBS don't want to talk about. Okay.
I'm absolutely sure there's some things that the record company did that they can't talk about.
I can tell you straight up right now for the readers, CBS was a racist company.
No, I believe that.
Oh, yeah, racist as it could be. And it seems like, which they'll find out in the book, when I started working for them, and Don Eason and Frank Chaplin, all of us were from outside of the corporation. We come in from independent, ABC, Stack, small labels, small black labels. Mm-hmm. So we weren't really corporate people.
Yeah.
But we were what they needed to get shit done because it just seems like they were asleep. You know what I mean? How you have a big force, What they were doing was working for them. There was no reason, to that point, mm-hmm. to you guys came around for them to even. Yeah, I mean, it was a corporation, and I've learned in corporations don't want any stars. Corporations want employees. Okay, you know this. You know this. Okay, I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, corporations don't want any stars. You are not to be an individual if you work for a corporation. You're supposed to be part of the machinery. But if the machinery isn't working. So if it's racist, how were you able to work for them you worked for them for a minute, yeah. And you know what the structure is. Well, you know what? I had the kind of attitude that I have just right now, and I can't say what I used to say to everybody because, I was never threatened by that. I grew up in East Texas and racism was just, I grew up in a segregated school. I wasn't surprised by it or scared of it or anything. It was just a condition mm-hmm. that I had to live in. Yes. And that's the way I treated it. They didn't know how to take me. You understand what I'm saying? Well, people still had that with you to this day. Tell me when something changes, man. Nothing's changed. Well, I can tell you when I first got to CBS, I think I left Capitol. I had left Capitol. And Capitol only really had 2 or 3 blacks. They had Lark and all. That was over A&R. And I think I worked Were you always sales or did that job? I went to promotions. Stax moved me out of sales to promotions. Okay. Matter of fact, my first project was Richard Pryor, That So-and-so's Crazy. That was on Stax. You did promotion? Yeah. I don't remember that. Why do I think the label was Reprise? No, it was on a custom label of Stax first. They had Richard Pryor signed. I think it was Fantasy or some label. It might have been Fantasy. Yeah, I think it was Fantasy, but they were signed. Richard Pryor was signed to Stax Records? Sure was. I met him at Memphis. He stuck his head in my office and said, "What's up, fucker?" Yeah. That's how we met. That's your introduction? That was my introduction to Richard Pryor. Yeah, little bitty, skinny looking, funny looking guy. Yeah, he was skinny as a rail, And I had, How do you promote that record? I'm sorry. Well, it was a lot of what they call underground things, what they call red light albums. Right, okay. Red Fox, all that kind of stuff. Oh, retail, man, love that stuff. Dolomite and all those kind of records. Yeah, that stuff sold. So did you promote it? Are you promoting it to people or you going it to record stores? To outlets and to stations, yeah. Because there would be bits of it that you could play where it wouldn't be any profanity. Right, you know what I mean? You do a teaser out of it and use it in a lead-in or something like that and then just talk about Richard Pryor's new album. How successful are you at promoting the Richard Pryor record before we move on? That's just interesting. I wasn't that successful because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. You have to realize when I first got into radio promotions, and Stax had no training for anybody. They just give you. When I went to work for Stax in promotions, this is a story that's in the book. When I went to work for Stax, they took me out of sales and put me in promotions. Took me over there and cut me a check. I remember this. They cut me a check for $800 mm-hmm. for expenses and got me an airline ticket to go to Washington, D.C. to see Jerry Bolden. That was the first. Jerry Bolden. The first radio person I called on was Jerry Bolden at WOL. in Washington, D.C.
This is a story. I know y'all probably don't know. Jerry Bolden is very...
Oh, yeah. Very famous radio person.
Very.
Yeah, we ended up being real close friends. But when I walked in, introduced myself and told him who I was and everything, and told him I was working for Stax, he told me to get the fuck out of the office. He put me out. You tell them so-and-sos, don't send nobody else. He had some kind of problem with Jimmy and Al, and he wasn't playing none of Stax records. So I got kicked out of the station. That was my first experience with radio. I got kicked out of the station.
Yeah. Ain't did nothing.
I didn't really pick up on what I was supposed to be doing until I went to work for Capitol.
How long was that?
I didn't work for Stax that long because they were in and I suggest this in the book, and I do believe this, is that when Stax wanted to get in the distribution business, CBS and the rest of the majors didn't want them in the business. They tried to buy in. Okay, they wanted to buy a portion. They offered Stax $5 million to let them buy into the distribution. But Al Bell and them was going to set up their own network.
Oh, you can't do that.
Of distributors. And I could tell you what happened. And I think about 2 months after we were in operation, we started getting tractor trailers full of returns. None of the product was getting to the markets in time for the airplay. All of a sudden, we started having...
He said all of a sudden. Y'all know what this implication is.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
I swear, we started having problems. We couldn't get the staple singles in the stores. We couldn't... I mean, this is amazing.
I love this conversation. Me talking to you is historic because... And maybe the average person that's watching this they don't understand what you've done and what you've seen and the decades long career of people. So I'm hyper interested. So y'all have to excuse me. So I'm trying not to drag stuff along because I know most people are just trying to get to whatever they think the good part is. And to me, it's all the good part because I love old school and hearing these stories. And I know I'm going to have to read the book to hear some stories, obviously. Because there's things that you could say about people that I would never ask on camera, very intimate details, and you know it all. Yeah. Which is a very interesting place to be. There's people that you probably love to death, and there were probably others that
I couldn't stand. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I don't even know if you can talk about that.
You know what? And most of the artists that I worked with, and I'm sad to say, are dead.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Teddy Pendergrass, Luther, which I loved. I love both of Teddy.
Oh, that's right. That's epic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Teddy Pendergrass and Luther. I loved touring with Teddy because he was a fool. You know, Teddy Pendergrass was wild, as they call. You know, it's a story in the book about me and Teddy, which I won't tell. You know,
I don't even know if I want to read that part. I might ask you to ink my version out, so I don't have to read that story.
You would not believe what I mean. He was just crazy. He was just wild. He was just wild, and he loved having fun. Loved to party. Okay,
say no more. Sir.
Yeah, and.
Saying that, are you surprised that you were able? You went to Vietnam. Mm-hmm. You came through a very stressful period in Black history, if you will. Are you surprised that you have survived all of that, all of them, and you're still here to tell a story?
It's a wonder to me, man. It's a wonder. I swear.
Because you went through a period where there were certain things that could be done, drugs, there was no
repercussions. I say in the book that during the time, my hottest period, during the time that I was the hottest, cocaine was like an hors d'oeuvre. Okay, I'm telling you.
I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry.
But you know
it's the truth.
Yeah. Everybody had drugs. Everybody had cocaine. Matter of fact, that was the drug of choice, cocaine and Quaaludes. When I mentioned in the book, which was, me being a country boy. Now, I thought Chicago was the shit. When I got to Chicago, I worked Chicago. I loved Chicago other than the weather. It was just a different city then. It wasn't all that violence and all this stuff. It was tons of clubs for acts to play. I worked with some of my big heroes when I was in Chicago. Minnie Riperton, Bill Withers, George Duke, Herbie Hancock, Tyrone Davis, Johnny Taylor, Joe Tech. I I just had a beautiful time when I worked in Chicago, man. Because, I mean, that's when I started feeling like, I'm going to run this shit. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying?
How so you?
Yeah, I'm going to run this. But you know what? When I first got to Chicago, I had to first master Chicago. Because Chicago was ugly. Then you had E. Rodney Jones. And it's a story in the book that's just going to mess you up. This is why things have happened during my life and certain periods in my life that just, you can't explain it. I get to Chicago. My only obstacle is E. Rodney Jones.
Now, who's that for those?
E. Rodney Jones was the program director, operations manager for WVON, which was the big station. So you had to realize back then we were going through the transition from AM radio to FM radio. AM radio was all the black stations.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And they had a brand new FM in Chicago. It was WBMX. That was Ernest James. And WJPC was Richard Steele. Okay, so I got along with them two right away. But Rodney's favorite saying was he shake the 45. He said, I don't hit nothing. This ain't no hit. He throw it in.
Wow.
And he throw it in the trash.
There's somebody watching this that don't understand what you just said.
I don't hear nothing. Yeah. That means there was no money in the envelope. Okay? Yeah.
You don't have to be so explicit. But I guess the only way to tell the story is to tell the truth. Yeah.
You no money in the envelope.
Yeah.
But I happen to be, one of the stories are just as strange. I happen to be in Texarkana with my mother, seeing her on vacation or something, and I'm telling her about she excited about my new job at CBS and me moving to Chicago and everything. And she said, you know what, baby? I got a best friend of mine that has a son that's in radio up there in Chicago. And I said, who is it, Mama? She said, well, I don't know if his name is the same, but her name is Jones. I said, no, it ain't no way that you talking about E. Rodney Jones. She said, that's him, E. Rodney Jones. What come to find out, my mother and his mother lived next door to each other for 20 years. She knew him as a kid.
Wow.
So when I got back to Chicago, I walked in the office. I said, oh, yeah, I got you. You going to play all of my records from now on. All of my records. And people couldn't understand what happened. But after that, I never had a problem with Rodney.
So did you say something to her? Or
I told him that who my mother was, and who is I know your mother, and your mother's best friend is my mother. He said, I be damned. He said, oh, yeah, he knew he had to take care of me.
Shut up.
I swear to God, that's what happened. He knew he had to take care of me. Yeah. I told myself, I want to call your mama now. Yeah. So Rodney took care of me.
Shut up.
Plus, I had a friend of mine that was from Memphis that had just got signed to CBS that had a manager that was very well connected to people with alternative lifestyles. So he used to ship me in sweaters. He had a friend of his that had a sweater factory. He used to ship me sweaters, Federal Express, with packages in them. Okay, and that's what. Matter of fact, I say in the book, that's where you could fly, do anything you wanted to do with no checks. There was no checks, so nobody was checking nobody. I remember when they used to smoke dope in the bathroom and on airplanes. It was the wild, wild west. You remember that?
What a transition,
yeah,
man.
You remember that? And then from stopping smoking cigarettes, stopping everything. Yeah. I remember the first time that I saw a dog, a drug-sniffing dog. I was flying back from Jamaica, and I was dirty.
God.
And I'm on the plane, Hannah, and I look out the window, and I see the DEA down there with the German Shepherds and going through all the luggage. I said, oh, shit. So I had to get up, go to the bathroom.
And let everything go.
And let it go. Yeah. I had to let it go. Yeah.
Okay, I have to ask this because you were there, you worked this period, and it was, I don't know if there is a such thing as one of the most corrupt times in the music industry. but in your opinion, was there a corrupt time in the music industry? And were you ever offended by, like you said, somebody saying that I don't hear a hit in this
I wasn't offended, no.
Why not?
Because it was a practice that I was aware of. And see, I always had worked for a label, so I had never passed anything, okay? They didn't allow you to do that if you worked for the label. They would hire independents to do that.
Yes.
So I had never given anybody any money, you know. I knew about it. And I knew that other guys had to do that with Rodney to get their records played. I had never gave Rodney no money.
Right.
You know, never had to, none of that, you know. We were boys. I mean, I used to make Rodney come to all the CBS affairs because he used to piss the white folks off. I mean, he used to come to the affairs with 2 white girls. You know, I mean, he used to come in like this. They hated him because he controlled that market.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many questions I want to ask, and I'm scared because you'll answer, so I have to watch what I ask you.
I'm not going to say anything to jeopardize anybody.
Well, just even when you talk about, you know, I don't want to call it corruption because the music industry, every industry has a bit of...
Let me say this.
Okay.
Okay. If it's in America, it's corrupt.
Wow.
Okay. From the government all the way down.
Wow.
Okay. I have, you know, I've been, and I say this as humbly as I possibly can.
Yes, sir.
I've been at the White House. I done met Reagan. You know, I was doing that era, which I was hot. I've been to all the Black Caucus conferences with the Congress people. Used to have to go to Washington, D.C. once a year. Because, see, I would say that back when they first formed those black divisions for record labels and all that, they had a black department and all that was all political. It really didn't have any function.
Wow.
Other than to say we have a black department. That's what that was about, because it's after the 60s. But as soon as Reagan got in, they started dismissing all of that. They disbanded the black division in CBS and assigned all the black employees to individual labels. That's how I started working for Epic, because when I first got to New York, well, Richard Mack and LeBaron Taylor were up there when I first got there. And everybody, all the senior vice presidents in the sales division, because as quiet as that it kept back then when there was physical distribution, the sales division ran the labels. Okay, because I know when I first got to CBS, the promotion department, marketing department, they reported to the vice president of regional sales. That's who hired me. So I figured out as soon as I got there, Richard Mack and LeBaron and them jobs were just figureheads. I didn't even get interviewed by them when I got the job. The white regional vice president interviewed me and hired me on the spot. He didn't even. So
how did you feel about? Because obviously you came up, man. You worked in a very interesting time in the music industry where there's there's a division. I'm obviously still there. Let's not fake ourselves out. But I think you've seen it in such a way that it was over apparent that there is a separation. They try to gray it now. It's still there, but. What was the feeling of all the blacks that worked during that time? And were they taken serious? Were you taken serious?
No. That's what really pissed me off most about CBS. There was a condescending attitude about the black division. I saw that as soon as I got there, you know. I just didn't feel like they had any respect for the people that were in charge. You know, I could tell the way they would talk about them. I mean, I can't repeat some of the shit they used to say, because when they first hired me, the regional vice president that hired me had ideas for me to take their jobs right away. I mean, I could tell that he was, you know, he did not respect Richard Mack or LeBaron Taylor. He was a very powerful regional vice president because he had all the rack jobbers. You'll have to explain to your audience what a rack jobber is.
We'll be here all day because you dropping all these names and these people don't know how big some of these people are.
Definitions of these terms.
Look up rack jobber. You'll learn a lot. It's all dealing with the record industry and records and things of that nature. But you got homework to do. This is a homework assignment. Put it on the bottom of the screen, David. Rack jobber. RACKJABBER.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Homework assignment. And then you're going to have a test on it tomorrow.
Yeah, but the regional vice presidents all had assignments to rack jobbers, okay? And Handelmans and all the major rack jobbers, they could sell a project platinum with one order. They had that kind of, they had Walmart, they had Target, They came. All the big department stores were handled by rag jobbers. So if we had a big order come in from a rag job, that gave the regional vice presidents power and weight because they had the relationships with. And I don't think they had figured out exactly what promotions and marketing was. I think they thought that was just something where people were fucking off. You know what I mean? I really do. Because when I first went up there and went into promotion, they used to try to keep the sales and marketing people away from me, away from the promotional staff, because they figured all the promotion people, they ain't doing nothing out there doing dope and you know, hanging with the DJs because they didn't respect black radio.
Wow.
Okay, and I mean
well, the question is, did a time ever come where they started, in your opinion, to respect it? Did you ever? Did you work in it long enough to see? Oh, I think that there's respect there, or not?
I demanded it.
Okay,
that's one of the reasons why I'm not there anymore. You know, I demanded it. You'll be surprised. You'll read in the book that when they first signed the Jacksons. Okay. See,
and you were there during that period.
I was during this period.
Wow.
See, what happened was.
You were there during from the Motown to Epic Records signing of the Jacksons.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We first signed the Jacksons.
So you know Michael and Tito and Randy.
Yeah. I know Michael better than all of them. I really spent more time with Michael. Yeah. The guys, I only saw them on that Victory tour. That was the only time I really worked with them.
Why would you have spent so much time with Michael?
Well,
later on, he takes over. Yeah, that's
Thriller.
I'm sorry, dumb question.
Yeah, so I mean, I met him for the first time when they had the Going Places album that Gamble and Huff did, because it went gold, and we did a little presentation with them. But I did not meet Michael and get to know Michael until the Victory tour.
Were they signed to Philadelphia International then?
No, they just had Gamble and Huff
produced the album.
Mm-hmm. And then they had Destiny and Victory and all those other projects but Michael.
You got to know your music on this episode, y'all. For me, I'm tickled to death. Y'all got to roll me. I'm tickled to death right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But they had those projects, and Michael really wanted to produce a project on his own. And
was the label into that? I was always curious.
Label was scared.
They were.
Yeah, they were nervous.
A lot of people don't remember Michael already had solo records under Motown.
Yeah, but they had never been. The only one that he ever had was big was Ben.
This is true. This is true.
Okay.
And that's
I know my history now.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah.
That's why this is fun. Ben is 72-ish, 3-ish.
Yeah, he had never had a solo career that was successful without his brothers, other than Ben. Okay,
yes, sir.
And I met with him and Freddie DeMann. Freddie DeMann is a Jewish guy that was managing Michael back then. They used to carry, but I don't want to get into that. But anyway, Freddie DeMann was his best.
I want to know what he was carrying.
Yeah, but so we had a big marketing meeting. First time I'd ever had one for Michael. And that's why I say in the book, there wasn't any emphasis put on the Jacksons until Off the Wall. Okay. Off the Wall, I never had any pressure from anybody on any of the projects.
They weren't excited about having the Jacksons on their label?
Well, you got to realize, okay, now I'm going to tell what's in the book. Okay, this is what they're going to find out in the book. Epic was really not a very strong black label.
They had Philadelphia International, though.
I said Epic.
You right. I'm sorry. You told me.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Yes,
we
sir.
had custom labels like Philly International and Taboo and all those that were supplying the black material.
Yes.
Epic didn't really start being a black label until Larkin Arnold came over, took over the A&R for the black division. He signed Luther Vandross, Tina Marie, the Jacksons, and Michael. Now, see, what had happened was he made a deal with CBS, them thinking that he was going to be signing black acts that would only probably sell maybe 1 million or 2 at the max, that they gave him points.
Oh, my goodness. Really? How was a black man able to negotiate that?
It wasn't anything, there wasn't anything of that type.
It hadn't happened before.
It wasn't, I mean,
they probably were laughing.
The biggest black album probably was Earth, Wind & Fire, probably sold 2-3 million, That was the biggest black project.
Wow.
So they weren't.
But that's straight Columbia, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah. Well, Columbia was the parent
of all of it.
That was the parent label.
Y'all got to follow. This is a homework. This is a homework episode. It's great. If you know old school and you know music, though, you loving everything that's happening right now. Okay, so he comes in. He negotiates a deal to get points off of every record
he signs. They hated that deal after they wanted to get rid of it.
So what was the first record that he signed that would have been very profitable for him?
He signed the Jacksons.
But the Jacksons didn't really.
They all that shit went gold.
Enjoy Yourself.
All that stuff was gold. I mean, they don't.
But I don't think. But they wouldn't worried about that.
No.
The point that comes when these records start going platinum.
And Off the Wall, it started being a problem. Okay.
Well, that was some.
They tried to renegotiate his contract. That's not in the book because I can't legally say that because I wasn't there. But I know. You know, when you get a record that sells 20 million copies, okay, you know, Thriller sold 1 million copies a month for 15 consecutive months before it slowed down.
And he was getting points off of that.
He was getting
yeah, don't that? Yeah, man, I'll take points on that right now.
It's still selling.
And this is long term. There's a cap on it.
I don't know if he's still getting points, but I know that Jody Williams was a good friend of mine. You know Jody, don't you?
I don't know.
With Radio 1. But anyway, Jody Williams was telling me that she had been out to Larkin's house, and she came in, he said, "This is a house that Michael Jackson built." Okay, so there you go. Okay, and you know it's a $20 or $30 million home, I'm sure.
Lordy.
But that was the point.
What a negotiation! I wonder. I would love to ask him what made him ask for that, and it's never traditionally been done before.
Because he had done it with Capitol. See, Capitol. Larkin's Arnold story is a story within itself because Capitol really had hired Larkin in the legal department.
Say his name again.
Larkin Arnold.
Larkin Arnold. Black man.
Yeah. Larkin Arnold was in the law department in Capitol Records. So when Capitol Records started this black music division, there wasn't nobody else black there. So they gave him the realm of being the head of the black division. And he got 2 hit records at Capitol. He signed Natalie Cole and Mays. And I broke Mays right here in Houston. I broke Mays in New Orleans.
Wow.
First record, the first station to play Mays was WBOK in New Orleans.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but he had a sweetheart deal. So, I mean, everybody was telling me, said, well, you know, Larkin did this, Larkin did that. I said, no, Larkin got paid for it. I said, but I'm the MF that got him paid, made that records hits. Because I don't care if you, excuse me for this, but I don't care if you had signed Jesus.
Oh, God.
If you don't get it on the radio back then, how do you know? It'd be a great hit in the living room.
You're right.
Yeah.
Especially back then.
Yeah.
Especially back then. Radio was everything.
That was it. That's why the book is called Radio is King. If you didn't get radio, you dead.
Wow.
There was no Facebook, no streaming, no nothing.
Instagram, no digital.
None of that.
You lived and died. But what about like the Soul Trains and stuff? That had some impact as well, huh? Those TV shows like the Soul Trains.
Yeah, they sold records. Yeah. But you know, the thing that really kicked Michael's record into another gear was that Motown 25th.
I think I don't think no one could deny that. But nobody's seen that coming either.
He stole as a child. He stole it, and then it just went. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
But you still don't know that his album's going to do as well as it did. Like when you first heard it,
I knew it was a monster, but nobody could predict that, man.
Did you think it was a better record than Off the Wall?
Not really.
I want to see what you're going to say, because that's a big black dude.
Rod Temperton wrote most of Off the Wall. You know who he is.
Oh, yeah, white guy, Heatwave. Yeah.
Hell of a writer.
Yeah.
He wrote Thriller.
Yeah. Yeah. When you listen to those songs, it sounds like Heatwave Records.
Yeah.
When you start to listen, you're like, if old buddy from Heatwave would have sang that song, it wouldn't have been as big as Michael's.
But that's Heatwave.
But it still would have been.
Heatwave
they
sound.
all sound like Heatwave
that's
records
Heatwave
too.
Sound.
Yeah,
let
it's
people,
the Heatwave sound.
Let people know who Heatwave is. Man.
Wow.
So you laid out all this stuff out on
You
people.
got to do your research on this show. Heatwave was a huge. Okay, Heatwave's biggest record was Boogie Nights. Doom, 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 doom,
Always
doom,
and
doom,
Forever.
doom. Always Forever.
Yeah, they still
Those
play
are
that.
classics to this day.
Yeah.
Always Forever is always going to be a classic.
Yep.
So you may not even remember Boogie Nights because some might consider it a disco song.
Yeah, that's right.
But Always and Forever has been redone. Did Luther redo Always and Forever? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Rod Temperton wasn't incredible.
Oh yeah, nice guy too, man.
Yeah, he
Real
seemed to be a
nice
nice
guy.
person.
I met him 2 or 3 times with Quincy.
Oh, you know what? Heatwave was one of y'all groups.
Yeah,
I'm
Heatwave
tripping.
Heatwave was. That's how I first met him. He was the keyboardist for Heatwave.
Wait, okay. I thought. Okay, you said that they start. Okay, that's not. Is that Epic? I'm trying to remember.
That was epic. Heatwave was epic.
Look, y'all. Some of this stuff I was a young kid, but I was crazy about music, so I remember some of these details that I probably should not be remembering. But loved music just that much, so that's why this is so exciting because. A lot of time, and this is how history gets lost. I mean, you might see the 30-minute version of something on some TV One show or something like that, but we miss a lot
Untold stories
of this history about some of these groups and some of these people that. Who was one of the groups? And don't say Sade because I know you're partial to Sade I am.
Love my baby.
Name me another group that just really got you excited and you love working with them.
Mother's Finest.
Mother's Finest. I forgot they were on Epic.
Okay, I love Joyce. She was a hell of a vocalist.
Mother's Finest biggest song is Done.
Love,
Thank you,
love,
happy.
love changes.
Love changes.
Come on,
Been
baby.
done a lot of times.
Come on, baby.
But they were really, to me, a rock group, which was the most confusing.
That's what they wanted to be.
It was the most confusing band.
Yeah.
David's over here like, I don't know what the F y'all talking about.
No, they were dressed up like they were rock and roll.
The albums were hard. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta ask this. I'm sorry, y'all. Now how do you market a group? 2 people who look like me and you, but they're a rock group, and people that look like me and you, especially at that time, unless it's Jimi Hendrix, which they probably didn't want to hear him even.
I never got any traction on anything they did except for Love Changes. That was the only track that we could do anything with Black radio.
Huge song.
But the artist that I loved, that I did really get a chance to work with was Minnie Riperton. I met her 2 times when she appeared in Chicago, but then she got sick, Yeah. But I loved Minnie. She was a sweetheart. And another person I loved that I didn't get a chance to work with was Phyllis Hyman.
Met her in college. Let me tell you.
Gorgeous. Yes. Stop the clock, gorgeous.
And we were young kids then. You wouldn't have believed at that particular time how many young kids, because she wasn't making music that we were listening. We were hardcore hip hop at that time. They said Phyllis Hyman was coming to the little college station. It was like 40 of us in there clamoring all of them because she was tall.
Yeah.
Big stout.
She's about 6 feet tall.
At least. And you talk, man, and the guy that interviewed R.I.P., A.B., they talked to each. It was one of the most intimate.
Yeah.
Their conversation almost seemed like sex. I don't know if they knew. Yeah. They were this close
talking to each other.
She was
that kind of woman, though. She used to flirt with me all the time. She was just fun.
I don't
You know what I mean?
What do you think?
I don't know, man.
Okay,
I say that in the book. I say that in the book.
Say no more.
Because I saw her, I think about 2 to 3 nights before she killed herself. Me and Paris was at a party in a hotel in New York, and I ran into her. I used to run into her all the time. I first ran into her in Milwaukee. She was doing a show. And then I used to run into her in New York all the time. And we used to flirt and play with each other and go on, But she was just a gorgeous person.
You never know what's going on in somebody's world,
that's why I was saying, man, how could you done? I mean, as gorgeous and as talented as she was, how could she kill herself?
And I think that song "Living All Alone," I hate that I believe that is what was going on inside that human being. And it's my favorites. Yeah. Between me and you, I sampled it on one of my little records. I
got Phyllis on my playlist now.
Wow.
But she just seemed like she couldn't find a man. You know, she had just got divorced before she killed herself.
Yeah, but when you strong like that, and I always feel bad for women
I didn't feel
that.
like she needed one, though, really.
Well, everybody wants
everybody needs a companionship.
Right?
You're right.
But, and I understand it because she was so strong and she's tall and she was outspoken and all these things. And most, some guys,
they can't handle that.
Yeah,
no, they're
not built that way, sir.
I love it.
Yeah, because you like a challenge. You a shit talker. Y'all excuse me, but that's what this. He come from that era where and it can be thick. He walked in here like that. That's just what it is.
I loved it. She was just because when I first met her, I didn't know her from Adam. She started messing with me right away. You know, because I was tall enough for her to mess with. You know what I mean? Because she was
true.
Most men were too short.
Yeah, true. All right, I'm not gonna ask you who you did not like. I will say who was kind of difficult to work with.
Difficult. Well, Sade in the beginning.
Really?
Yeah. She didn't have any faith in epic, period.
Well,
yeah. Now, they read this in the story because when the album first came out, Diamond Life, she was big in Europe. Mm-hmm. Nobody was playing her nobody had ever heard of her in the States. So since she was so big in Europe, Epic Domestic was under a lot of pressure to not fumble this ball. You know, I think it was like $3 million or $4 million in Europe before we released it over here.
Really?
And so they passed the cassette around, and everybody listened to it.
Cassette. These kids like, what is a cassette?
Yeah.
Okay, word on the bottom, cassette.
Yeah.
That's another homework assignment. We'll have a test tomorrow.
Yeah. They passed the cassette around, and this story is in the book. And
no, you can't tell the story, but you got to get the book.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to get the book.
But nobody could. To sum it all up, nobody could hear it. And that sounds.
It didn't. No.
That sounds strange to people nowadays.
Now. But that record. At that time, hip hop is starting to bubble.
Yeah.
Everything
was starting to die.
Yep. Everything is it's starting to turn like computerized. There you go.
Yeah.
So here comes this record.
Old school.
Horns in it.
And I'm telling you, man, some of the stuff that people used to say about her. Oh man, she can't sing. She's off key. She's so. I mean, how you gonna get that?
Okay. Listen. I adore Sade. When I never thought she was the greatest singer, but I never thought anybody could sing her songs.
No, you can't.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And loved her. I don't even know why.
Presence. Her presence.
I took the song "Your Love Is King." I took it personal.
Everybody do.
I was a child.
She talks to
to this day, you can't. I don't care what your relationship was with.
But
I'm telling you right
now,
now,
Love Is King is yours, huh?
I thought that she was talking to me. Again, I'm in 8th grade, bro.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm thinking this woman is talking to me. She understands what I'm going through. We are here, and I know this is a grown woman. Mm-hmm. I loved Sade. I can't really explain her career and the music that she did and make it make sense. Mm-hmm. If you compare it to Whitney or Patty or something like that,
else.
You understand what I'm saying?
I got some good stories on Patty.
Oh God, I bet you can tell me.
Oh yeah, I got some good stories. On Patty.
You did Mark.
I did.
You know what?
If only you knew, her only #1 record out of her whole entire career.
Oh wow! Okay. I'm going through my mental.
Oh yeah, only #1 record as a solo artist.
That's a great song.
Okay, and my wife picked that song.
Really?
Yeah, my wife picked that song. I can tell you this because Patty had signed to MCA. She had left Epic. She had gone New Attitude. That was her first record on MCA. I got a new attitude.
Yeah.
And she did not like CBS and Epic. They didn't like her. I don't know why. I love Patty. And I used to, as a matter of fact, that's only one of the few people I would go to all of her concerts. I'd go to Patty. I'd go to Luther. I'd go to Sade.
Man, I hate you. You seen and worked close to I
go to Michael's, but that was it. I didn't go to everybody else's shows. What was happening was when Patty contract was up, she owed Epic an album, okay, and so Gamble and Huff brought the album up to Tony Martell, which was the vice president of Associated Labels, and they were not interested in releasing it.
What?
Oh, no. Patty hadn't had a hit at CBS. She had a bunch of mediocre...
Y'all don't even know why these stories are great.
Yeah, she had a bunch of mediocre records over there. I always thought that they just didn't put the emphasis behind her. She was just not she was a diva. Okay, and it takes you, and she's still a diva, but you have to have a certain kind of understanding to deal with divas. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, that's like
you got one of those attitudes where I think you can deal.
Oh, I love
with
her. I didn't have no problem with her. Matter of fact, I didn't have no problem with Sade, and everybody didn't. Nobody liked Sade.
What?
Because she knew what she wanted. When you find an artist that knows what they want and will not take anything else.
And she demanded it? How was she in a position to demand that?
She would not. She was a multi-platinum act in Europe. She was making big money in Europe. Matter of fact, I went over there, and she was not known in America, but she was really concerned about her American release. And what had happened was they sent several VPs over to talk to her, and she turned everybody down, told them no, she did not like their marketing plans. She was not going to do that. She was very concerned about being labeled as a black artist. Being stuck in that art. Her favorite line I used to love is, "I will not be another Chaka Khan." That's what she used to tell me all the time.
Wow.
I will not be another Chaka Khan.
That's hurtful.
Yeah. Well, Chaka Khan she thought was a great stylist, and she is. Chaka Khan and her have a lot in common because Chaka doesn't have a great vocal. But
what?
Chaka's not a Whitney Houston, none of that kind of stuff. Now, Chaka is a stylist.
I reserve the right to come back and have this conversation at a later date.
But you notice how Chaka takes a record.
When I think the Patties and the divas of R&B, Chaka's name is...
Oh, Chaka is a monster now.
Okay, all right.
Chaka, I love Chaka. Okay. I worked on her and Rufus, which I think was her best period.
Too?
That was ABC.
Yes.
I was at
ABC. Okay.
She was I was with her with Sweet Love. The monster. Whoa, sweet.
I will not be labeled as a Chaka. It sounds a little bit disrespectful. But I guess she's saying she's such a good singer. She felt like she should have been bigger.
She should have been bigger. She felt like Chaka could have been bigger if they hadn't put her in this category.
So how were they able to then market Sade then? So
little old me.
So they didn't market her to black radio, is what you're telling me?
I explained to her, in America, you're black. You're going to have to go to black radio first. I don't care. They don't play her right now on black radio in Europe. She's played on pop. Okay, yes. Just swallow that. Yeah, they do not play her on black radio. I just spoke to a station in the UK, which I'm doing an interview with next week sometime, because I got Sade, so everybody in Europe want to talk to me. But they don't play her in Europe on black radio. And she's a pop artist over there. And I hate that. I hate that transition. I hated that with Michael. I hated that. I wanted to know, and I raised this with Epic, and it's probably like I say why I'm independent. I raised this, how can an artist that was signed by the black division, that is black, that was a black artist up until he started selling 3 to 4 million. Now, how did he change from a black artist?
Because if we can get 3 million of them, we most certainly can get another 3 million of them others.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's how.
Yeah, that's why they said it's not a black artist anymore. I said, I'll be damned.
Did they ever verbally say stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. I'm demanding it. They said, man, let me tell you something. You'll see in the book, at the Thriller, because see, by 79 or 80, I had grown full testicles. Okay. You understand what I'm saying here?
Man, I hope somebody's enjoying this episode like I'm enjoying
I had grown. I knew
full grown.
I knew my capacity. I knew what I could do. You know, I had no doubt in my ability or my staff ability because I had fired everybody that was full of shit. I had hand-picked staff. The guys were killers. Okay, so I knew what we could do. You know, and I wasn't worried about it. Matter of fact, I say in the book, I have never, during my time at Epic, I never even considered who had what out. I didn't even look at the charts. I didn't care if Prince or Whitney Houston or anybody else had a record out. My shit was going to get played.
You so arrogant.
I mean, but I mean, that's the truth. How do you know that?
But if you got Michael Jackson, well, you don't know that you get ready to have that Michael Jackson. No. See, that's the Michael Jackson we all know now. At that time, you don't know then. You just off the wall Michael. He's an urban artist then.
Yes.
With a twinge of pop, I think, was it Rock With You that went a little pop?
Well, Off the Wall was the first record they released. Off the Wall, Michael produced and wrote and everything. And they were concerned. They were really concerned. But me, with my arrogant behind, I stood up at the meeting and said, I'm going to make this record #1 in 4 weeks. And they laughed at me. They said, sure.
Really?
Oh, yeah, sure, TC. You know, like a
the
kid.
Off the Wall album or the
Off the Wall.
Really?
Yeah. You know, like a kid saying, I won't do this. And they said, sure, kid. You know, they thought, because I had only been in New York a year. I got there in 78. 79 is when DeLeo came and they started dropping Michael stuff and Off the Wall album. And when I had the meeting with them, I didn't particularly like that first single. I thought
What was the first single? I don't remember for sure.
I know one of them was Michael and Paul McCartney, which I hated. That was on Thriller.
No, that's Thriller. Yeah, that's The Girl Is Mine.
Girl Is Mine. And there was another one.
I love that song. Come on, man.
Oh,
it ain't no Billie Jean, of course.
Now, I hated it because they felt like they had to put Paul McCartney on there to make him cross.
Was that their purpose?
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't that it was just a good song?
Why other would they do it? Is it any other duets on the album? No.
I mean, I can't question you on this.
It was the first release.
I'm just thinking about it from, my perspective.
This was a known pop heavyweight, Paul McCartney.
But he's not out of his generation at this point. Paul McCartney is what, 2 generations before Michael Jackson? Michael Jackson's a teenager doing this song with Paul.
But they did that to ensure
that it
would be accepted by pop radio.
Did it work?
Yeah, it worked.
Okay.
But I was insulted. I really was. And I brought it up in the meeting. I think it was insulting to put him on there as a crutch. I thought Michael was strong enough to not need it, and he was. I had gotten to the point that I had started building a relationship with Michael and starting to talk to him.
I'm trying to remember when this record was released, The Girl Is Mine, as opposed to was Billie Jean.
Billie Jean was in the 80s. Let me see. I got the timeline on my book.
Because The Girl Is Mine is during that time.
The Girl Is Mine. The Girl Is Mine is the first. Wait a minute. Here it is right here. Let me get to Off the Wall. Let me see right here.
Yes.
See, this is my timeline.
It's after Off the Wall.
Yeah.
Because it's on the
that's on the Thriller
album.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if it was the first single. I don't think it was the first single because I'm trying to remember when he went.
It was the first single on Thriller. But
was it?
Yeah. It was the first single on Thriller. The first single on Off the Wall was another, I cannot think of it, but it was produced and written by Michael Jackson.
Ooh,
I cannot remember the name of it, but it was a big record. Let me see. Here we go here. Isley Brothers, Toomey, Teddy Riley,
what songs on there? Not the little disco song. It wasn't "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough," was it? No, it's not. It's not "Don't Stop Till." Listen to him run through all the people that he worked with, just name dropping over there.
Wait a minute. Thriller was in '82.
Yes.
Okay. Off the Wall was in '79 when I first got to New York. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go do some research on it. I don't remember that being the first single.
Well, it was a Michael. It was a Michael solo. It was a Michael solo.
The Girl
on Off the Wall.
Is Mine, and that was the first thing before Billie Jean.
Oh yeah.
Because the
they
25,
didn't drop the album until Billie Jean. That's when they dropped the album on Billie Jean. Billie Jean was a.
So you're saying single, Motown?
They don't even think they did an album, a video on The Girl Is Man. I don't remember one. I don't remember producing one. I know we did a one on Billie Jean, and everything else that was on that album had a video. But I don't remember no video on The Girl Is Man.
Okay. How was it working with Michael?
Michael was a dream. He was, I say that because Michael was the most stuck-up artist that I worked with. He didn't have any kind of false bravados about himself. He was always unsure about his performances. He sweated them. Always unsure. Oh, yeah. Always unsure about his production. He would always be a delay in his production because he would always want to go back and change something. But
it's always those people at the very top that have all these
doubts.
Yeah. And you would imagine that they would be confident.
Yeah, he the man. You know what I mean? How can you be doubt about anything?
That a little bit throw you off when you see this kind of self-doubt with somebody who doesn't even understand the magnitude of their...
Well, you know what? I tell you somebody, a person that I saw that didn't have any self-doubt was Sade. She knew she was the shit. You know what I mean?
Now, is that in the ego way or as an artist, I'm sure in what I'm doing
I'm sure of what I'm doing. I'm sure. She co-wrote and produced all that stuff.
Yeah.
So her and Matthew, which was a saxophone player, which was my man back in the day, they were the creative element in the band in the beginning. Matter of fact, I think they're back together working on a new project now. Because I had to talk to her before I did the book because there's some things she did not want me to put in there.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time with her because nobody else wanted to work with her.
Really? I just have a hard time believing that they would find, and obviously I don't know this woman. So when I see her, I see this peaceful, loving, beautiful.
She's a beautiful person.
She almost floats for me. So that's the way I see her.
She is so sultrous.
Yeah, man. That's all. So the image that she created is impeccable. And the other thing is, and maybe you can answer this, she would never, ever do any songs where she is singing with somebody else, doing a hook.
Not that I know of.
And I even heard Jay-Z is asked, Drake has asked. Do you know why she refuses?
She wants, first of all, she really respects her privacy. You can count the number of interviews she's ever done. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why she didn't want me to write a lot of stuff in the book about her. Because I said, damn, you said it, we did it. So no, but TC, I'm about to come out with a new project, and I hadn't had a project out in 12 years. I don't need any controversy. So I said, okay, no problem. Okay. But I got a story on her would have sold the book by itself. Okay. If I had not wrote about anybody else, I would have just wrote
people
about
I think
her.
Want to hear something about Sade.
Yeah.
Because she's mystified and she's not looked at as a human being.
Yeah. She's like the queen in England. I was talking to London radio about 2 weeks ago, and I was telling one of the DJs the story that I was going to put in the book, and she begged me not to put it in there.
Wow.
She said they love her over here. You can't do that.
Wow.
I said, well.
I believe it. Yeah. I probably would have said the same thing because don't mess up the person.
They said don't mess up the image. I don't care who she with, man. Don't mess up the image.
I'm telling you, I don't care who she with. She is still mine.
She represents something. I understand, player. I understand. But I called her.
That was nice.
And
you did the right thing.
I love her. I couldn't,
I like the way you casually said that you just picked up the phone and called Sade.
Yeah,
in my community, that's called capping. Just in case you wasn't aware, because I know you like to stay in your own zone now. But if you wasn't aware, what you just did is
capping. Is that what that is?
Just a tad bit. Okay. I picked up the phone and called Sade. Like I'm getting ready to pick up my phone and call her. But that's cool. That's cool. You can't. That's just your life you live. You can't help that.
I don't call her all the time. I don't mess with her. That's one thing that people respect about me. If I don't have something really to say, you know that about me too. I don't mess with people.
No, you don't. You call with purpose.
Yeah.
You call to check on folks. You will do that every once in a while. But other than that, you live your life and you've always done that. TC, man, I got a million questions, and I know I can't. So I can say I can't answer.
I can say that.
All right. We know you love Michael. I'm not going to ask anything too deep about Michael. I know you got some great Michael stuff in the book.
I've been around him with women. I've been around Michael with women. I've seen him with women. I've seen him in compromising positions with women.
Stop. It's Michael. Don't say no.
So if they say Michael don't like girls, I'm either blind or I'm having hallucinations or something.
I got you. Yeah. Now, another one of the greats, and this might be my last one about artists, and then I'm going to zone in on this book so you can do your thing and so you can get back to your life.
It's all in the book.
Luther Vandross. What was it like to work with Luther? Because Luther, before we knew Luther, and let me ask you this. I always thought it was pretty gangster, and I haven't, till these days, never heard of a artist going back, buying the masters to their material, and not allowing it to ever be released. Like if you can find Luther's group called Luther.
Yeah.
If you can now, with Change you can find because it's the guy from Italy who put the little groups together and he sings the vocals. But that one group that the girl, not girls, it was a mixed group of men and women, but it was called Luther.
I remember.
But
it was on Atlantic.
It was a cotillion?
It was on Atlantic.
It was okay.
Yeah.
So if you can find those records, they might be worth money. But I just always thought it was gangster that he went, bought the masters, and never put those records out.
It was on Atlantic. He did not like Atlantic. They
was that what it was?
Yeah, they screwed over him.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think people would have loved to have had that record if he re-released
it. They dropped him. He was signed to Atlantic when we got him. They dropped him. Believe that?
So I wonder how soon before his record started to blow up at Epic with y'all, did he buy his masters back from them? It had to be quick because I didn't know for years
that it was him out there. Huh? Yeah,
thank you.
That Luther, the group. Yeah.
Thank you. Like I never had heard about it. I never heard nobody talk about it
for a minute. You know what I mean? And it just disappeared like it wasn't.
What a secret.
Yeah. It wasn't
and then I found out, he bought the masters and refused to release the song.
I'm trying to think of who. I think it was a guy that was over Atlantic, and I don't put this in the book, but this is true. They dropped him because he was gay.
Well, you wasn't supposed to substantiate that.
That's all right. I mean, ain't nothing wrong with Luther being gay.
No one ever has substantiated that, so
I can.
Shut up. No. You will not. And you will not do it here.
I'm not going to do it on the radio. No, I mean, I love Luther. Hey, let me tell you something.
We might go
Luther.
back and just edit this part out.
Yeah, I know Luther. Luther,
gee whiz.
Matter of fact, after I left.
I've never heard no one substantiate that. That's the way it's supposed to stay. It's
I can't.
Then you might not understand, but in our country, in the black community, Luther is sacred.
Hey, man, I'm going to tell you something. I said that.
We don't care what his lifestyle was.
Look, I said that statement at a club in St. Louis one night.
They probably tried to kill you.
They tried to job me.
They should have. You can't say that. You know that. But I know you don't care. You're going to say what your truth is.
Look, I love Luther. He was a dream to work with. Work his butt off. I could get Luther up at 4 a.m. Said, Luther, I got to have you over here, so-and-so. Luther did not play. He wanted it. And I mean, that's something that is missing in tons of artists, man. As talented as that man was, and still chase it like he did.
Okay, truth. Don't lie to me now. When you do finally get him over on Epic or CBS or whatever one, do you think he's going to be what he became?
I knew it right away.
Come on, TC. You say that about every artist. I knew Mike was going to be this. I knew Sade was going to be this. Somebody you just didn't know that they were going to be what they became. Oh, God. Okay, you got the ears. Okay.
Okay, come on. How do you know this? You ask the questions you already know the answers to.
This guy.
You know, I'm telling you, look, I knew when I heard
I bet you was in one of those rooms like, I don't understand it. The guy's overweight. He's a balladeer. These things are not going to work.
Man, when I heard Never Too Much.
Teddy balladeer, Luther balladeer,
exact opposites.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do you know?
I knew when I heard Luther, when I heard Never Too Much, I knew it was a hit record. I mean, I had a problem convincing Epic that it was a hit record.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So why did they sign him?
They didn't sign him. Larkin signed him.
Oh, another Larkin signed him?
Larkin signed behind him.
I love this guy. I got to see if there's information about him. I've seen his name on records growing up, but I don't know his story.
Larkin has got a hell of a story.
So he got. Oh, that's right. You did say he got the points on Luther too.
Yeah, he got points on. Oh yeah, Luther,
this guy,
Tina Marie, Sade, and Michael and the Jacksons. Wow. I just take one of them. That Diamond Life album sold 20 million copies, man.
Sade? Wow. Man, I love you. I still to this day can't really tell you what type of music that Sade is. I know we're all over the place, y'all, and I apologize, but some might say it's R&B,
have a different definition.
But it's not. Jazz radio plays her.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Contemporary.
Pop.
Urban pop.
AC.
Yeah. Yeah. She all over the place.
So you worked with her. You worked at the label. Mm-hmm. You called it what? When they had the label?
I didn't even name it. I didn't name it.
So how'd you market it? Because you know they had to have it.
I had to find a way to get her accepted in America. Okay. I knew Your Love Is King and Smooth Operator would not make black radio.
What do you mean?
Back then, they wouldn't play that.
They didn't play that record?
I
don't remember. I was a kid.
They did eventually play it, but I introduced her with Hang On To Your Love.
That was an awesome record, bro.
Which was
that album.
And the reason why I picked it, because it's got the same track as Thriller.
Wow. Here we go. Okay.
Come on, baby.
I don't want to talk to this
baby,
guy no
why
more.
I get the big bucks? Okay, come on, baby. Come on, now give it up, head. Come on, give it up, Hannah. Listen to it.
You sure right.
I know. And she hated that record.
Why?
It was the first record that she ever
It's
wrote.
like the backwards version on the bass of Thriller.
Yeah.
Wow.
You just recognized that.
If you never told me that, I never would have thought about it. But
that's the reason why I picked it.
Michael Jackson.
Same track.
Wow.
Yeah, because the pop department didn't know what they said. Man, they knew that they could not bring her out of the box with her big hits from Europe, which were Your Love Is King and Smooth Operator. There was no place to get that played. So I said, my deal was this. I'm going to come out with Hang On To Your Love. I'm going to run it up to top 10 at R&B radio. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do a national press tour on her and introduce her to the country. I had all what they would call now influencers would come out, Calvin Klein. I had all the major people show up for all of her parties. Mm-hmm. We had one in New York, one in Chicago, one in L.A., one in D.C. Had them all across the country, took her on a little mini tour and introduced her. And my plan was, while we were running Hang On Up To Your Love up the charts, people would get introduced to her and start accepting her style while we were running.
As a kid, I went and got the album. The song made me want the album. Most of the times, we're singles
people sell
market.
albums back then. They don't know.
Well, that's a whole nother story. Mm-hmm. Okay, a few more questions.
Shoot.
So how do you feel you had the opportunity to work from the 70s, right, all the way through the 2000s? And you occasionally, if you pick and choose, you'll still do some independent work today. Mm-hmm. What happened? And your book is called When Radio Was King.
Right.
Which implies radio is not king anymore.
You're not.
So to you, I just want to hear, to me, because you lived it, what happened in your opinion? Is it because social media is just so strong, et cetera? Or what? What
radio
happened?
got disinterested in music. Radio not interested in music anymore.
What is it interested in?
They're interested in numbers. In advertisement, in playing familiar sounding records. That's why when you listen to a radio now, you don't know when the last record stopped and the next record starts because they all sound alike. Matter of fact, the last time I really listened to the Box, I think it was the Box, and I think Lil Wayne was hot back then. Every record that they played had a Lil Wayne sound to it. So radio doesn't want to take any risk of losing listeners. So they play branded material, Beyonce, Jay-Z, recognizable sounds, and they don't want to break that groove by testing a new record. New records, matter of fact, now have to go through research, all kind of stuff, man, before you can get them on the radio. I remember the day that a radio programmer would trust his ear.
Sir, that was a while back.
Yes, it was. Corporations came into radio.
That's when radio was, you got a chance to see a lot of that fun stuff. And then it got taken away. And so I think what you're talking about, it hurt radio.
Oh, it
hurt. And now they're at a point where these kids have no interest.
No, they have no interest in radio. It's nothing.
They'd rather just look at TikTok.
Yeah, they look at TikTok or they'll go to YouTube. My grandson, which is 19, he listens to all his new music on YouTube.
So let me ask you this: Can radio change?
Oh, yeah.
You wrote this book. In your opinion, in 2023, when this is being filmed, could radio still be a major player with all this stuff? And I don't have my phone because I left it. But with that digital thing that needs to be in my hand, could radio survive that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A radio has, first of all, got to get risky again. There was never.
That's not happening.
I know.
Okay, so essentially it's over.
It's over.
Okay, so we don't need to talk about that no more.
And another thing
I'm just being honest, and I just want to hear from somebody who lived it, was there,
they're not
and
risky
they're being
anymore.
on now.
Yeah, they're not risky anymore. They don't want to take any kind of chances of any kind of new material. I've heard it a million times. Test it somewhere else. Or find out if it's got legs. And then after you prove it's got legs, they still don't want to mess with it until it's researched. And their audience recognizes that sound. They know who that person is. I say, how the hell are you supposed to know who he is and you won't play him?
So is music essentially, is music dead? Or just the mediums on how we listen?
Now, you know what? Music is dying too, which I hate. I want you to notice something. You will notice since the first of this year, how many new releases have you seen?
Well, because of my position, I see a lot of records, but they're not from big artists.
There you go. These are all independent and little people trying to get something going. Major labels don't.
These are little people trying to get something going.
Major labels don't need to release as much material anymore because catalog is selling because of streaming.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. So is the record label dead now? Because these new artists, they can upload their own music. They can get distribution now. They can get on all the platforms. So is the major record label and signing to the major record label, that's such a big deal now, or is it done?
No, you need a big label.
So you still think that's...
Oh, yeah, because you need big money.
Still.
You need money. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You got to have money. You can have a natural thing happen. Amazingly, and I've been in the industry 50 years. And I don't know, I can count the number of records that I've worked that when you put them on the radio, they just ignite. That is rare. I mean, very rare. Most records take time, energy, and effort. Matter of fact, like with Sade, it took banging that record to make people really realize that this girl is, this is something here. You need to listen to this. It took me beating it up and putting her in her, and her being as sexual and sensuous as she is didn't hurt.
No, absolutely.
But I've worked. Let me see. I can tell you. You remember the record "Ghetto Jam" by Domino? I worked that.
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
I love that song.
That record
Here we go. Here we go.
That record blew up in 3 weeks. It was just.
That was a good record.
Oh, it was a huge record.
It was a good record.
And I told my boy. And he'll tell you this today. I told my boy...
Outburst, I think, was the label through Def Jam.
Yeah, that was my boy Greedy Greg. It was an indie record. They signed to Sony. I told him not to do it. I said, man, this record is about to blow up. Don't sign that deal. He got $300,000 in the single and everything went platinum. I said, you got shorted.
Wow.
Yeah. He didn't have no faith. He wanted to go take that short money.
Well, sometimes you don't know, so you get what you can get.
SOS Band was another one that blew up, just blew up. As soon as we put it on the radio, blew up. Matter of fact, Mayo, mayonnaise, I call him Barry Mayo.
Yes.
I used that record to beat Mayo up for years because Mayo took over WGCI before he went to New York to Kiss. And before I left Chicago to go to New York, I begged Mayo to play this record. I said, man, this SOS is a monster. I can't hear it, T.
He couldn't hear it?
I can't hear it.
Take Your Time, Do It Right. He couldn't hear it.
Couldn't hear it.
Oh man! As soon as that record come on, you just I don't know.
He couldn't hear it. He couldn't hear it. And I beat him up about that boy because when he got the program ship in Kiss in New York, I told him, I said, you missed that other one.
Don't miss another one.
I said, you missed that one. I said, I told you that record was a hit. I said, you better start trusting my ear. Man, I wouldn't have no ear.
Be quiet.
He's a good programmer.
We ain't gonna start no old school beef on this one.
No, there ain't no beef. I told him when he was programming the stations.
Lord, let me ask you.
Yeah.
I gotta let you go. And I know, David, I know you gotta go. Listen, what do you tell these young folks when they ask you questions about putting out music now, the best way to put these records out, in your opinion? How do you do that in this environment that we are in now?
Well, as hard as it is for me to say, because I make most of my money in radio, is that, you need a lot more than radio nowadays. Matter of fact, you got to fill so many slots, And but on the other hand, if you have a monster record, you don't need but one outlet. You don't need maybe YouTube or radio or social media, just one. That's all you need. But records that need work and help need all of them. You got to put eggs in all the baskets.
You're right.
Okay.
All right, when is book dropping, man?
Book is available March the 3rd. It's on Amazon. You can also get it on my website at whenradiowasking.net.
All right.
Okay.
Go there and get it directly.
Please, get it from me direct.
Yeah, get it from me
direct. Because Amazon robbed you, brother.
Stop.
I'm trying to tell you.
Don't start no store beef on here. TC,
thanks, man.
I love you. I'm sorry that you were waiting in that hallway and got pissed off.
Now I got to go get in traffic now. I got to go get in traffic because you had me sitting out there for an hour.
Listen, man, this, you know what? You're going to feel good going home.
Boy, you good.
No.
That boy good.
But listen, because I could talk to you all night long because I have a million questions because I'm so in love with that period of music. And you had a chance. I'm jealous of you. I'm literally jealous.
Let me turn this thing off. Excuse me, man.
That's all right. I'm jealous because you had a chance to me as corrupt, crazy, racist.
Oh, yeah.
And all this other stuff. You had a chance to live in an era and see from 70, even just from 70 to 79. You had a chance.
It got really good in the late 70s. Late 70s to the 80s. And then after I left CBS, I went and did Teddy Riley.
Did you? You did the new Jack too? I didn't know that.
I did Guy. I did Rex and Effect. I did all of that. I ran GR Productions, Teddy Riley's company, for 3 years.
I love Teddy Riley.
Oh, yeah, I did all the Teddy stuff.
Was a cool, real quick story. There was an artist on his label, I'm not going to say who, that came to Houston and just did. I don't remember what this particular artist did, but it wasn't cool. But I was okay with it. I'm used to artists doing all kinds of stuff.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, you just get used to it.
Yeah.
Teddy Riley, and he'll never remember because he had no clue who I am. But he called me. I don't know to this day how he got the hotline of the radio station. He called me and said, "Hey, is this Mad Hatter?" Yes, it is. This is Teddy Riley. This is when I love everything Teddy Riley. When I was writing songs, I kind of bit Teddy Riley production style. Teddy Riley calls me while I'm on the air. I can't even think after the call. Teddy called me to apologize for this artist. And I'm like, Teddy, sir, you don't have to apologize for somebody else's stuff. Man, I said, you are golden to me. Yeah. You are great. And you even picking up the phone to call me to tell me this makes me love you even more as a human being. Yeah. And he know he's very soft-spoken.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how do you know, man? Yeah. And I'm like, man, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. But it was unnecessary.
Let me tell you this story before I close out.
Yes, sir.
I signed Teddy when he was 15 years old.
Wow.
To CBS as Kids at Work.
Kids at Work. You sure right. They were epic.
That's
Boy, you done seen some history, man. I don't know how you can get this. This book got to be this large.
There's 350 pages.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I don't even see how you can pick. I don't know how you can pick what stories. Well, I know some people don't want their stories told, so you can easily eliminate.
Yeah.
So I bet some of them stories that you had to cut was probably like They probably sold the whole book. Probably, like you said before, one store probably sells the whole book. But I think for me, listen, even if you don't get a chance to tell the story about all those other people, I think anyone that enjoys music, loves the music industry, and wants a bird's eye view
of what it was like.
Literally. I think the book has to be fun for them. Yeah. In any capacity, it has to be fun.
My editor, which just texted me, was a professor, so I had to get somebody that could talk.
Shut up.
Could talk. I could trust myself with my English. So I got somebody.
Not even your English, just the way.
My manner. You know what? My daughters are going to be really proud of me because I had a whole interview.
I can't believe it.
And didn't curse.
You didn't. Well, there was one or two that slipped, but I'm so surprised.
I didn't say any kind of profanity. I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Because anyone that watches this like, wow.
Yeah.
Who is that? They may not know who you are.
Well, they probably don't, but I am a very quiet person, reserved person.
I don't know that person.
I was not that person most of my life.
Really, I don't know. I don't know him.
Oh, I was.
You're always been
driven,
up in your face. Say it how it goes.
Driven.
Don't bite your tongue. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You've always been that way. You've never changed. But I will say you've always been gracious and wonderful and beautiful to me. So even when you mad at me, I still can't be mad
I respect you. And there are a few people I respect. That, you know that. You know that, Hannah. I respect you. I've always liked you because you've always been a straight shooter.
Yes, sir.
You always been a different straight shooter.
Yours is more hurtful, but I've learned how to soften mine. But you've
always been straight.
You've always been helping me when I was doing records. Everything.
I always liked you. You always straight up. You were non-pretentious. Which I like. Because I'm non-pretentious.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, even though I've just been blessed, man. That's all I can really say. Because in the book, I tell the story from me as a kid in East Texas, listening to my little AM radio, and used to have to. Only time I could really listen to any kind of black music was late at night because I used to be able to get Chicago. Used to play all the good stuff, and just dreaming of that stuff and loving music. So and getting a chance to actually live it. I couldn't ask for nothing else, man. I could not ask for nothing, and I did not mind the bumps. Or the bullshit, or the racism. I mean, that stuff rolled off my back like it was water. It didn't really matter to me as long as I got what I wanted done.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
I was not going to let something like that kill my purpose. And like I say in the book, and I say this, I don't tell on nobody but me in the book.
I like that.
Is that, I stopped cocaine. I stopped everything.
Yes, sir.
Cleaned myself up. Because first,
look at you, still here.
Oh yeah, and I was telling Don Carter, DC,
you know all these people.
Yeah, DC that used to be vice president of Motown. We was just talking about he's 82.
Wow.
He looked like he's 40-something.
Wow.
And I just tried to tell him, man, how could you have done the amount of narcotics that you did?
Stop it. Don't do that here. No, we won't do that here. If it's in your book, it can be there.
It's in the book. Go out and get When Radio Was King.
Get the website again. Yeah.
When RadioWasKing.net, trust me, as my editor says, it's a page turner.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
I have fun just sitting here talking to you. Thank you for sharing. I hope somebody takes this and it's a capsule for what the industry was when it was to me
fun.
As bad as it was.
It was fun.
It was great.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these kind of stories.
It was energy.
Yeah, man. So
energy.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
and also, with all that being said, what is success to TC Tompkins?
My kids. That's the funny thing about it. I say that in the book, though. Out of all the stuff that I've done, after all the hurrahs and all the things that, celebrated that I've done, it all passes away. It all fades away. It's just like the latest headlines. You ain't covering that no more. And the reason why, and I can say this before I close, one of the main reasons I wrote the book is that people start lying about what they did, about artists that I know I did. I started reading stuff about how so-and-so broke Sade and he did this and Michael Jackson. I'm sitting and saying, is this person? You know, where were you when I was out there beating them streets? You know? So, I mean, my daughters really insisted, Daddy, you got to claim your legacy. That was the word. Claim your legacy. Yeah.
I like that.
You know, so that's why I wrote the book.
You have claimed it.
Thank you.
Man, thank you so much,
Thank you, player.
Nothing but love. And I don't care how mad you get at me, I'm going to still love you regardless.
Hey, you know myself with temporary. You know, even though you treated me like somebody you trying to, you know, I mean, I want to let your audience know that he told me to be here at 1:45.
Lordy.
I was here at 1:30. He made me wait until 2:30.
In my defense, I did not know it was here until he angrily opened the door, and then I had to stop and stop that interview.
Yeah, sure.
Just end it.
Like somebody else invited me. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Always, dog. You're my man.
Yes, sir.